Institutional lending is coming to the XRP Ledger and 3 companies are especially fueling it. Ripple, Cicada Partners and Clearpool. They are partnering to use the XRP Ledger, Ripple USD and the new and upcoming lending protocol to create value on the XRP Ledger. But what about XRP? We get new sources of institutional capital for borrowers, and even Ripple is moving on-chain on XRP Ledger to provide liquidity. But what's the role of XRP here? Will it be used? Is it even needed? What is all upcoming to align all this with our North Star, which is XRP? Let's get into it. Hey, what's going on everyone? My name is Krippenreiter and the announcement I want to talk about today is about the partnership between Ripple, Cicada Partners and Clearpool. But this time with a special focus on XRP and how XRP is even involved or how it could play maybe a greater role in the future with the credit market finally coming to the XRPL. But before that, I want you to get the basics right. Let's start with a little refresher on what I already explained the other day about the lending protocol. I promise nothing too complicated, just something to get going so that we get the basics right before we jump into what this all means for XRP and this partnership. You already probably know this overview. I created it the last time we talked about the single asset vault and the lending protocol in my latest video about lending. And as you probably remember, there are 3 roles. The loan broker is the first one, then the depositor and then the borrower role. And we also have the vault and we also have the loan that the loan broker and the borrower are both co-signing and creating based on the covenant. So the rules they both come up with to sign the loan agreement. Important here to know is that the vault is basically in the center of everything. It aggregates the liquidity that is coming from the depositor as the lender, as the depositor can deposit XRP, IOUs or the new multi-purpose token. It could be bonds, it could be money market funds, every kind of representation that can be tokenized as a multi-purpose token is something that you could put into the vault if the vault is created and configured in the way so that the multi-purpose token can be deposited in the vault. And what the depositor gets back for depositing the assets and funds into the vault is an issued share token. Also, again, a multi-purpose token, and it represents the position in the vault. And then we have the loan broker on the one side, and then we have the borrower on the other side. On the XRP Ledger, the single asset vault and the lending protocol is built in a way so that the loan broker has to care about the borrower, and the borrower has to communicate with the loan broker to come up with the loan agreement and co-sign so that the borrower gets the funds for whatever he needs the funds for. Remember, the lending protocol, the way it is built right now, doesn't care about collateral. Why? Because there is just no collateral on-chain. It is an uncollateralized lending protocol. Maybe in the future there will be ways to do it on-chain, but for now collateral can only exist off-chain. This is important to understand because the only way to secure the funds that the depositor puts in right now, at least on-chain, is through the first loss capital. But what is this partnership all about and who are even these new participants? Maybe you know them already from Flare. It's nothing new. If you know Flare, Clearpool, for example, is something you probably already heard. But for the XRP ecosystem, this is probably new. So we have Ripple, we have Cicada, and we have Clearpool. And the way this is set up is that Clearpool will do the infrastructure. So Clearpool will enable a creator-driven model where independent risk managers, so Cicada Partners, operate isolated credit markets, a vault now built natively on XRPL. When we talk about vault architecture, what we actually mean is the single asset vault plus the lending protocol on top of it. Then we have Cicada Partners. They will care about credit origination and servicing. And they will do independent underwriting. On the lending protocol, underwriting is done off-chain. So the whole way of finding a secure borrower, someone who knows how to pay back the funds, is done off-chain. So your risk management or any kind of research that you do to find the best borrower for the deposited funds is all done off-chain. So what Cicada Partners will do, they will, as I said, be the underwriter, bringing institutional credit standards to on-chain lending, which is on-chain lending on the XRPL. For this, Cicada will act as the credit pool manager, so they will actually be the loan broker, and they will source the borrowers, so they have to find the borrowers. They will set up the loan covenants, so the rules for the business loan agreement, and they will also monitor borrower health. Why is this important? Because if something goes wrong with the borrower, they are the ones as the loan broker who have to do the default in case the borrower isn't able to pay back the funds, right? And then the third participant in all of this is Ripple. They will do liquidity provisioning in the credit funds. Just like any other investor, they will provide capital alongside institutional co-investors. We will see who this will be, but as a participant in the fund, just like all the others. So they will actually also get active on-chain, on XRPL. They will provide liquidity. Cicada Partners will be the loan broker and will source borrowers, and Clearpool will do the infrastructure. So the initial setup of everything that is about compliance and building the infrastructure that is needed to even get going with the lending protocol and the single asset vault. And we can see this as well on their website. As we can see here, Clearpool already known to originate close to 1 billion in loans. They have $30 million total value locked and $10 million total interest paid already. They create markets for T-bills, private credit, institutional fund strategies, and commodities and currencies. And they are currently live on 7 chains. As I said, Flare is one of them. Here's probably a placeholder for XRP already. Pretty sure this is the place where XRP will be. What's interesting here on this page, how it works, they say borrowers and lenders. And if we click on borrowers, it says institutions interested in becoming borrowers can request to be whitelisted by contacting the Clearpool team. So this part is permissioned. But if we go to lenders, so for lenders, it says anyone can be a lender on Clearpool. Clearpool DeFi liquidity pools are permissionless. All you need is a supported wallet interface in order to connect, lend, and earn attractive risk-adjusted yields. And this is not correct for XRPL, and we will talk about this in a second, why this is the case. It could be this way, but in this partnership with Clearpool and with Cicada, it's not the case. And they made it very clear on how this is all set up. I will talk about this in a second. Then we have Cicada as well, and what they are doing is risk advisory for RWA offerings and stablecoin private credit, just like Ripple USD. So traditional lending modernized with stablecoin flexibility, wallet infrastructure, and AI underwriting tools. Again, underwriting, very important. It is all off-chain, it is not on-chain, so you need someone who knows how to do risk management. And what they use for this is a tokenized risk assessment, but it's not only for tokenization and off-chain assets. They also have a document that they provide for credit as well. So this is a detailed overview of Cicada's risk assessment methodology for tokenized assets, including private placements, tokenized direct lending, so Ripple USD, and other blockchain-based products that take direct credit risk. So everything around the lending protocol, this is how they assess risk. And how this all then looks like in practice on the XRPL, you can see here in this overview. I know it's super complicated, and I know you already saw this one as well in the beginning of the video. So what I want to do right now is I want to mix them both and give you an overview and how this could look like in a more, let's say, easy way from an overview that isn't that much complicated. So as always, with these overviews and the lending protocol, we will start with the easiest part, and the easiest part is the vault itself. The vault is in the center of everything. Everything revolves around the vault, which is why we will start with the vault. But the difference this time is that the vault is not open. It's permissioned, and the reason for this is because obviously Ripple and Clearpool and Cicada, they want to adhere to compliance, and the only way to do it on-chain is through permissioned domains on XRPL. So what we will do with this vault is we will actually put it into a permissioned domain, and the permissioned domain on XRPL is just a permissioned environment. And these permissioned environments, what you can offer is a permissioned DEX and a permissioned vault. So you can actually offer permissioned lending and permissioned trading. Clearpool will actually offer permissioned lending this time, so we will cover this with the permissioned domain. So what you can see here is basically Clearpool and Cicada right now. We have the permissioned domain set up and the vault created from the loan broker. And Clearpool is doing all this on behalf of Cicada. So Cicada is actually the loan broker that manages the vault inside the permission domain, while Clearpool actually created the vault and the permission domain. And why do we need the permission domain in the beginning? Because of compliance. We need to make sure that all these partners and participants, so Ripple, Clearpool, and Cicada, adhere to KYC, AML, so anti-money laundering, and sanction screening. And to do all this, you need a permission domain and you need credentials. You can think of credentials and permission domains just like a house. Imagine a house. And inside the house, you have a lot of doors, a lot of rooms. And all these rooms are locked with doors. And to get into the room, to do permission DEX trading, to do permission domain-based lending in the vault, you need credentials. And the credential that you own as an account is basically saying, okay, we vetted you off-chain and we found out, okay, your KYC is good, you are not laundering money, and you are not residing in a sanctioned country. So we give you the credential that makes it possible for others on the blockchain to see that you are allowed to enter this permission domain. So the moment the permission domain sees that you have the right credential, you can enter this domain and can land and use the vault inside the permission domain. So again, Clearpool as the infrastructure provider created the vault in the permission domain on behalf of Cicada, because Cicada is the vault curator that actually wants to manage the vault and provide yield for the lender and source borrowers. Now it gets a little bit complicated. As you can see, Cicada also owns the credential depositor wallet. So the depositor role is in itself a wallet as well, so an XRPL account. And the account owns the credential, as I said, KYC, AML, sanctions screened. You know that the wallet is valid. This is important because only if the depositor is credentialed can it access the permission domain. But Ripple is also a part of this whole concept. And what they will do is they will be the liquidity provider. So they will also be a depositor, but not directly. They will not directly put funds into the vault. They will actually use their funds and deposit these funds into the depositor role. So what they will actually do is provide Ripple USD into the account of Cicada, and the depositor role, so the account of Cicada, will repay in Ripple USD as well back to the Ripple account. Now what do we have here? We have the borrower, again a credentialed wallet, and we have the loan broker, both co-signing a new loan. What this actually means is that in the vault, the funds that got deposited by Ripple into the depositor wallet and then owned by Cicada and then provided into the vault, it will further be provided to the loan so that the borrower can draw the Ripple USD from the loan and repay it in installments. Important to know, the borrower can be any fintech. The issue just is that the fintech company, so the borrower, has to be credentialed as well, because we are talking about a permissioned environment. You as a retailer will probably not be able to provide liquidity just like Ripple is doing. If they ever open this up, they could do it. They could open this up or let you get the credential as well. So the moment you have the credentials, you could also deposit and provide liquidity. But what will not work is for you to provide liquidity without credentials. In this setup, they will never allow you to provide liquidity without going through a KYC process. But that's all Ripple USD, and I said in the beginning we want to focus on XRP as well. It's a little bit complicated because in this example, really mostly everything that is happening is Ripple USD on XRPL. And as we know, on XRPL, nothing works without XRP. But in this example, XRP really is just a gas token. Why? Because on XRPL, you need XRP to pay for the transaction costs. So everything that you see here costs XRP as in fees to settle all the transactions that are happening there. Then also all the objects that exist here in the setup. Think of permission domains, think of credentials, even holding Ripple USD. As it is a trust line, it's also an object, and for every object that you own on the XRP ledger, you have to lock up reserves in XRP. So you have fees, so transaction costs in XRP, and you always have reserves on XRPL, also on XRP, for every object that you own. So how could this scale for XRP? How could you maybe use XRP here? And the beauty about the lending protocol is that even though everything is set up with Ripple USD right now, you could literally just copy paste this and use XRP. It's really built in a way that the vault decides which kind of asset it holds. So the loan broker, or in this case Clearpool, the one creating the vault, decides which assets are part of this vault. So in this example, we see Clearpool creating the vault, and they decided for Ripple USD to be the asset that should be deposited into the vault. But you could also simply do the same with XRP. Clearpool could also just create a vault and say, This vault is a vault that only accepts XRP, so any vault creator, let's say Cicada, should use this vault to create a vault usable for anyone who wants to deposit XRP. So even though right now this is a Ripple USD vault, in the future you could just copy paste this and create a permissioned vault for XRP. Pretty easy. Then also something that maybe isn't that obvious if you see all this. This is all on-chain, right? It's all on-chain. All these permissioned domains, credentials, accounts, vaults, all these roles, the lending protocol, it's all on-chain. But the underwriting, so the risk assessment, sourcing of the borrower, it's all off-chain. So what you could do actually is you could also agree, you could do a loan business agreement off-chain as well, on top of the on-chain agreement. And what you could write into this off-chain loan agreement, you could say that the borrower also have to provide collateral for the loan. But this won't be part of the on-chain loan agreement, it will be part of the off-chain loan agreement. So the loan broker could say, I only accept and co-signs this loan agreement with you, borrower, if we both accept that the borrower has some sort of collateral sitting in a custody solution. Think of Ripple custody. So what you could say, dear borrower, let's sign this agreement, but make sure you have 1 million XRP, for example, sitting as collateral in custody, let's say in BitGo or in Ripple custody. So in case a default happens, I know where to get my money from. And then there are also use cases. So as I said, this is a Ripple USD vault and setup, but there are use cases that are bound to XRP as well. So one example is a market maker. So what a market maker could do as an institution, as a borrower, he could say, I want to borrow Ripple USD to build up my inventory because I actually want to do market making on a permissioned DEX, again in a permissioned domain somewhere else, maybe for Ripple payments, to do market making on the central limit order book on XRPL, but for the XRP Ripple USD pair. And for this, the market maker has to hold both assets, but he maybe only owns XRP and doesn't own any Ripple USD. So what he may want to do is owning XRP on one side inside the inventory, but borrowing Ripple USD for a short amount of time to do the market making for a service that he signed with Ripple, for example, for market making a permissioned DEX on the XRPL. And then maybe also another institution just wants to do trading on the XRPL DEX, maybe the open DEX. Again, what do you need for this? You need XRP and Ripple USD if you want to trade XRP and Ripple USD. Maybe borrowing Ripple USD is something that you want to do as an institution. Could be done this way very easily. Also, not just trading, maybe even providing liquidity in an AMM. The XRPL has an on-chain AMM, so automated market maker. You could trade and swap on the AMM, but what you can also do is you can provide liquidity. And for this, maybe it makes sense to borrow Ripple USD first, to then do single-side or double-sided liquidity provision into the AMM pool. Also a use case happening on-chain for which you need Ripple USD, which is bound and complementary to XRP. All in all, a huge confirmation for me that the XRPL is turning into financial infrastructure that TradFi is willing to use. Cicada will also very likely not be the last institution to leverage the infrastructure from Clearpool. But what do you think? When will an institution be willing to actually lend and borrow XRP or even use XRP as collateral on-chain? Let me know in the comments below. On the right side, there will now also be a video about my introduction into lending. Something you should take a look at if you have never heard of lending on XRPL before. Make sure to like, subscribe and share this video with your whole family. I wish you a lovely day and until next time. Ciao, ciao.